From is Steve Phillips. So take away, Steve, you're on the clock.
Catherine, if you don't mind passing me control of the presentation, or Leslie, if you can do that, that'd be great. And we'll get this kicked off here. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. All right, so this all set here. Can you guys see the screen okay?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for confirmation. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining. This is kind of a neat format. I was talking to my wife about it earlier today, and she found out I was on a speed dating appointment, and she asked a lot of questions about what that was. Anyhow, so to talk a little bit about Tintri. So Tintri is a company that was started by a gentleman by the name of Kieran Hardy 10 years ago, and if that name sounds familiar, he was employee number 25 at VMware, and he was the gentleman that Diane Green plucked out of Stanford in order to fulfill her vision of the virtualization wave that has kind of come and dominated the industry. And just the goal of what he was trying to accomplish when he created vSphere and ESX and all the other tools that you're probably used to using today, to automate as much as possible of the physical infrastructure that underlies a virtual environment. So it makes sense when you put it in context of CPU and memory and network ports and all those sorts of things have really largely automated to this point. You have software that defines and runs them. But really, the goal would be to make as much of that as automated as possible, all the way down, up and down the stack. So you can spend your time not at the bottom of this chart, but at the top, so where your time is really well spent and where human beings should really get involved, which is the applications and different types of things. So just as a quick overview, the automation has really come to fruition on network ports and CPU and memory. Like, you don't have guys running around trying to figure out what CPU runs what application. Software defines that. But in a traditional sense of storage, the problem came where traditional storage is really designed around servers, not around virtualization or applications. So you typically have to create silos of storage to handle different types of applications, and then always maintain and monitor those to make sure that they're not getting in each other's way. So, for example, here, you see there's read-tune silos and write-tune silos and so forth. And when something actually happens to change it, or it's happening within one of those silos, a human being has to get involved and start making those changes and engineering changes and predictions. And eventually those predictions are going to be wrong because virtualization tends to be very dynamic. So what Kieran's goal was to create a set of data stores that act exactly the same way that other areas of virtualization work, just like CPU and memory and so forth, so that automation can be brought to bear. And so building things like private cloud, either on-prem or hosted, for example, you want to take as much of that automation as possible and put it in there so you're not doing a bunch of engineering around storage or getting phone calls at 3 in the morning that say something went wrong. An example of something that goes wrong is the patient starts to bolt out the applications that are in those same sets of data stores that I showed you earlier. So a very common example is you have a set of applications that are running through a traditional architecture like what you see on the left, which is kind of like a funnel. There's a queue of different requests that come into a storage device, so the storage device is at the bottom of that funnel, serving all of those requests to the best of its ability. But what eventually happens is one of the applications, in this case SQL Server, for example, start to throw in a whole bunch of requests, and they start to push out the other ones that are there. So they start to become a bully. And when an application becomes a bully, what will happen to the other applications is it can't get a word in edgewise, and they get starved. They start to see performance problems. And so again, human beings have to get involved to go solve that problem. So what Kieran decided to do is what you see on the right-hand side. And if you remember nothing about this speed dating about Tintri today, I'd recommend you remember this slide or perhaps screenshot it if you like. What we do is we create separate queues or separate pipes, if you will, separate swim lanes for one of those applications. So essentially what we built is a storage device that understands VMs for what they are and understands the ability to make sure that they don't contend with one another, which is the most common occurrence in virtualization today, especially at scale when you're building clouds or when you're building whether you're going to host it or on-prem or even large virtualization environments. This is something you're going to run into all the time. So we're able to make those swim lanes as wide or as narrow as they need to be. And if one of those applications starts to interfere with the performance of another one, we can inject artificial latency into just that virtual machine. So we're taking the level of granularity from volume, or a LUN, if you will, and we're getting down to where it should be in the virtual world, which is a VM. That is really our unit of currency. And so what we end up with is we track every I/O for every VM and every vdisk. We auto-tune that quality service on a by VM basis, so we get optimal performance for every VM in the system. There's no noisy neighbors. So again, you don't get that 3 a.m. phone call that says, "Hey, I've got a whole bunch of VMs that are misbehaving. What do I do about it? How do I figure out which ones they are, et cetera?" So VM is really the unit of currency here. And a little further, what we've recently done is released a set of tools that are integrated with our device. That say anytime an application is going to be placed in the environment based on what its requirements are, it's going to be placed in the right place at the right time. We use a number of different criteria to figure out exactly where those things should go. So instead of just saying, "Hey, I've got a particular data store that's very full or not very full, or busy or not busy," we're taking capacity, performance, and also working set. In other words, how much flash that VM is consuming in terms of hot data. We're able to make decisions based on all of those criteria simultaneously, and taking all that data from the time you actually turned on the box to now. So it's a very data-driven approach to be able to manage a private cloud, or whether it's hosted or on-prem, or a large to medium virtualization environment where these types of issues start coming into play. So let me show you a couple of interesting things here about the device itself. This is our GUI, and what we show you here is a number of different items about that particular device in terms of IOPS and throughput and so forth. But we'll also show you a couple of different measurements of storage latency. So first one, the blue one, is what we, in terms of storage device latency, but we also build into it through our integration with the hypervisor management frameworks, such as vCenter, for example, able to break down exactly where that latency occurs. So instead of having a bunch of guesswork to try to figure out where that latency might be, whether it's at the host side or it's at the storage side, or potential contention, as we see in purple there, we show you exactly where that is. We also allow you to throttle individual VMs based on either a policy that creates a groups of VMs or individual VMs on their own. So you can say, for example, I only want this VM to consume a certain amount of those storage resources, and you can limit that, and we can show exactly what latency effect that has in that particular application. Here, in terms of performance reserves, how much horsepower you have remaining on the device, so not just in terms of CPU or cache, but also in terms of network bandwidth, anything that could potentially limit the performance of a device or of a VM. We'll do that here. So there's really no guesswork. So instead of have a whole bunch of storage ninjas that have spreadsheets in front of them, you can figure exactly if I have enough horsepower to be able to serve a particular application. And on here on the right, you see the actual VMs that are on the system. So you can see these are the ones that are consuming certain amounts of resources, how they've changed over the last week or so. So it gives you a nice little snapshot exactly how things are working. I can drill down further and say, show me VMs that happen to be struggling with latency on here. So we're pulling this data from vCenter in this case, or any other hypervisor you may be using, and we'll see exactly where that latency is occurring. So for example, here, I've got a VM that is struggling with host latency. If I double click on that, I can see exactly where that latency has gone over time. So we see there's a significant amount of latency that's come up just recently, and drill down even further and say, well, show me where that latency might be occurring. So in this case, this VM is experiencing a lot of swap weight. So this may point to the fact that it's possibly running out of memory and so forth. So you can go in and find out exactly how to triage that problem very, very quickly. One of the things that's interesting about our device is the ability to deal with things at the VM level, as I mentioned. And one benefit of that is through things like cloning. So for example, here, I have the ability to create individual snapshots of a particular VM. So show me the ability to, or actually let me have the ability to go in and create snapshots on a particular schedule. So I can say create snapshots every 15 minutes or so. Based on that snapshot, I can do very space and cloning of that particular VM, and I can create any of them at once. So for example, here I'm going to take any snapshots that we've had, give you the ability to use that as a starting point for any of my cloning for example, development instances for a database potentially. I have customization scripts here, so if I want to run sysprep in Windows, I can do that. And you can create up to 30 of these at any given time. So here's the VM as it shows in vCenter. And when I click this button here, what we do is we do all the heavy lifting on the back end to create all of those clones for you. And you'll hear that all the VMs are basically registering and they're pretty much done. These are all full clones as far as VMware is concerned. But notice here that instead of using 92 gigs of space, I'm actually using 0. So we're in link clone like space efficiency on our device and then do all the registration work and so forth, all the heavy lifting, but you get space efficiency here. So no matter how many you want to create, you have the ability to create them very quickly and not have to worry about having a whole bunch of space left over. So for example here, this is the equivalent of about 3 terabytes of VMs that I just created in 5 or 10 seconds. So this, being able to be focused on the VM is something we find to be absolutely invaluable. I also give you a whole bunch of different other tools that go into this that say, for example, if I want to create a bunch of VMs and have a pool of these data stores, I may run into a situation where I become imbalanced. So as we monitor all of those situations as they occur, and then we give you recommendations as to how to fix them. So for example, here, we know that a particular VM store is under load about 5% of the time. So we're saying, what we're recommending in this case is we want to migrate a couple of VMs to a different data store, and we'll give you the reasons why that is. You can also say, I don't want to migrate. I want to leave this in place, for example. You can change the recommendations. And then at the end of the day, it gives you what those outcomes are. So some of them are green, some of them are red. So for example, maybe using more space on the other side. But it also says it won't see a significant change in load. So in other words, it's a better balance. And when I execute on here, it will actually go and do that work for you. So this is something that at scale, again, when you want to automate a private cloud or any type of large virtualization infrastructure, you need type of tools to be able to keep up because human beings just can't keep up at scale. One other thing I want to show you is our analytics platform. So we take all of that data and we also feed it into a cloud-based app that uses techniques like Elasticsearch and Spark and determine how your environment is going to be changing over time. So you get a view of a particular slope that says, hey, at April 18th of next year, I'm going to get this level of performance at this level of capacity, so you can be planning. And you can use experimentation to say, for this particular type of application, create 100 instances, what resource am I going to run out of first? So you determine how much headroom I have for that particular application. So in this case, when I have 75 new desktops, for example, I'm going to be running out of performance before I run out of capacity. So it gives you the ability to do a lot of granular planning in terms of what that VM infrastructure looks like. So this is a real quick overview, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll kick it back to Leslie for the, I guess, the prize at this point.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Nice job. So, yeah, we want to go ahead and announce our first prize here, and Tintri has actually brought an Amazon Echo to the table, so it's going to be a good one. I want to make sure that all the participants we do have on, I still see of you are listed as call-in user. If you have the ability to change that to your first and last name there, please do so we can get you entered to win a prize. And not, go ahead and shoot me an email at freeit.data.com. We'll make sure that we'll get you marked down here. So I want to go ahead and pick this first one. And the winner of the Amazon Echo from Tintri is Evelyn Spangler. Congratulations. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and keep on moving here. We have, from Splunk, we have Bert Hayes. And Bert Hayes, take it away. I don't know if we can hear you.
I don't think so. Hello?
There you are. All right, we got you.
Okay, am I the presenter? I'm now the presenter.
Yeah, I have you on here twice, so I'm hoping it's on the right one.
You got me. The mobile is just a backup that I use to make sure that everyone see my screen.
I can see it.
Awesome.
Great, and I can see it too. My name is Bert Hayes. I am a staff engineer with Splunk. I work in public sector, so state and local government and K through 12. Happy to be here today to give you a technical overview, high-level technical overview about Splunk Enterprise. So Splunk, our mission statement is to make machine data accessible, usable, and valuable to everyone. I mean everyone, right? I mean you, me, mom, right? If your mom has a Fitbit or a fitness tracking device, right? That's machine data. The data that flies off of that system, the data that flies off of web applications every day, that's machine data, right? And people need to see value and have that data accessible to them. That's our mission statement. That's been our mission statement since we started over 10 years ago. We are the industry-leading platform for machine data. What this slide is showing, all of that stuff on the left-hand side are really just examples of the kind of data that we can ingest. Because what we excel at is indexing unstructured data. We're not like a traditional relational database where data has to be carved up to fit a schema, right? You have to take your data and carve it up into a bunch of square pegs so it fits into the square holes of your schema. Splunk does is we take unstructured text data and we store that in big data format. We'll talk about that shortly. We make it accessible for searching and reporting and visualization. So all of the icons that you see on the left-hand side of this slide are real examples. And if I could make this slide, I would take a big red rubber stamp that says anything, right, and just stamp the word anything on the left-hand side of this slide, because we can really index any kind of text, kind of humanly readable data. Okay, we don't do binary data, just text. So your JPEGs, your MP3s, would not go in there, but we could take, for example, the EXIF data from a JPEG, right? That's text data. We can index that data. A lot of metadata in MP3s, right? If you have a process that will read that metadata and pull that out, we can index that data. We'll talk about, hopefully if I have time, we'll talk about how we can actually index packet captures, right? PCAPs are binaries, network traffic is binary, but we're able to transcode that to text, to a JSON object, index that data. Really, we can handle any kind of text data and any kind of volume. We can scale to really massive sizes. So to summarize, we have the schema on the fly. You don't have to have a schema before you put your data in. So you can start putting data in on day one, right? Before you've analyzed it, before you know what's in there, before you even know what to look for, you start putting data into Splunk. The universal indexing means that we take any kind of text data, and there's no back-end relational database. So it's huge when you consider scale, right? You don't have one gigantic database file sitting around on one gigantic database server that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And every year you have to rip and replace that server and get the next model of server. That we write it is we index it. We are basically taking text data and zipping it. We're compressing it and putting it to disk based on timestamp. So if you imagine taking a 30-second slice of time and writing that data to one server, taking a 30-second slice of time and writing that to the next server, you can keep on going down the line, okay, out to massive deployments. We have customers that are indexing hundreds of terabytes a day across a dozen servers, right? It's not just one big box. So when we scale, you just add server scale horizontally. And again, there is no schema, there's no need to filter the data, right? You don't have to worry about what pieces of data are going in there. Just start shoveling data into Splunk, and we'll index it. We'll take care of that. So how to actually get Splunk? I'm glad, right? There are simple steps to deploy Splunk Enterprise, and we say that we scale from the desktop to the data center. So you can go to Splunk.com, and on our website, there's an icon in the upper right-hand corner that says Free Splunk, and you can click on that and download a 60-day enterprise trial version of Splunk Enterprise. Load it, install it, and start putting data in there. If you're on a Windows system, there's a Windows add-on that will start processing event logs and put that stuff into Splunk. If you're on a system, Splunk at var log and just start indexing data. You want to give Splunk a try, but you don't want to install it locally on a workstation or a laptop. There's Splunk Cloud. It's a product just running on a system in Amazon Web Services, right? So turnkey. You sign up for Splunk Cloud. You can get a trial version of Splunk Cloud. Sign up, and you are up and running in a matter of minutes. Start data into Splunk Cloud. And we scaled hundreds of terabytes a day. If you look at this slide, data on the lower tier of icons there, those are forwarders. So those are servers or workstations or devices that are forwarding their data into Splunk. And middle tier of servers, those are Splunk indexers, right, where the data is written to disk, again, based on the timestamp. Compressed text written to disk based on the timestamp. So in this particular slide, we have 3 indexers. So auto load balancing that data according to timestamps, spreading it across all 3 of those indexers. Right, that you probably about 100 gigs a day, 3 indexers. So your needs were going to go to 600 gigs a day or 700, right? You could just add another indexer. And top tier of this slide, we have a Splunk search head. This is what presents the user interface. It allows for access control to searching the data. It's where the users actually log in and run analytics. So there are different ways to get data into Splunk. The slide is showing some of the more popular ones. So kind of moving counterclockwise, starting at the left-hand side, we can accept data on an arbitrary TCP or UDP port. So now a lot of users send data to us as syslog data. You can tell Splunk to listen on UDP port 514 and just start accepting data from syslog, from network devices that are sending syslog data. Of course, we monitor mounted file systems, right, things that are mounted across the network. We can look at Windows perfmon data, Windows event logs, and Active Directory data. Capture wire data. So again, this is about 5 o'clock, right, on this diagram. Wire data is how we eat packets. We have an app called the Splunk app for Stream, and it runs very much like Wireshark or TCP dump, right? It sits there and gobbles up packets. But that's the app that transcodes those binary packets, text JSON object, and that JSON object is what actually gets indexed into Splunk. Okay, the slide of this presentation is actually a screenshot of what that data looks like. DevOps and IoT, so we can actually take data. We call this the HTTP event collector. You think of maybe an embedded device, a thing, right, is on the Internet of Things. That's not going to be able to maybe generate log files. It might not have any storage at all. It could be able to generate a post, right, connect to port 80, connect to port an HTTP server, post, and start posting data. That's what HTTP event collector does. And if you consider that behind a load balancer, right, you can index millions of events a second. Really cool. That's a great way to get a ton of sensor data into Splunk in a hurry. Scripted or modular input. So if you have a script, if you have maybe a script, maybe a PowerShell script, something like that, the output of the script can be sent directly into Splunk. We can monitor local files, local flat files, right? Maybe you've got var log on a Unix system. Maybe have an access combined, an HTTP access log, maybe an IIS log. Of course, we can monitor those flat files also. So this is how we get data into Splunk. Now, we talk about Splunk being this platform for machine data. As a platform, we want to make it very easy to get that data back out, right? So data into Splunk, very easy. Getting out, whether it's formatted or whether it's raw data, maybe you want to use Splunk as kind of a filter before sending data into your SIM. You have a help desk, service desk, and want format data. You want Splunk to automatically create a service now ticket right at your service desk, so we can do that as well. We want to make the Splunk data accessible to everyone, right? We want to make it accessible, usable, and valuable to everyone. So we integrate with third-party business tools, right? What is the most popular business tool in the world ever? Right? It's Microsoft Excel. So I have an ODBC connector that allows Excel to use Splunk as a data backend, manipulating data in Excel. Okay, I'll move on and talk about how we actually handle search, alerting, and reporting, right? Because getting data in is great, but we want to be able to search that data. We want to be able to analyze that data and generate reports and alerts. That's how you turn machine data into operational intelligence. Get in there, search, report, alerts. So talk about the schema on the fly. If you look at the slide, on the left-hand side, we have interesting fields, okay? These are auto-detected because the source type is access combined. Splunk automatically parses this data and knows what to do with this data, right? That's great, that's easy. Everybody does that with access combined. It's a very common data format. Splunk will do this with any kind of structured data as well, right? Any kind of XML or JSON, or you have a field equals value kind of event pairing or field value pairings in your event, right? Splunk will automatically parse that, and that's why we say we have this schema on the fly. This happens at search time. This doesn't happen when you put the data into Splunk. It happens at search time. That's that you can extract new fields anytime, right? If there's some piece of data in your events and you didn't care about it 6 months ago, but care about it now, you can go back to those logs, you can go back to those events from 6 months ago, and you can extract that new field, add that to your data analytics for that source type. So also take data in from data sources, external data sources, things like Active Directory, LDAP, right? Things like a change management database or an HR database. In this case, the event that's listed at the bottom, we have that as part of the event, right? We have an IP address and have a user ID, but we're finding that, we're enriching that with data from an external data source. We know that that user ID is Bob Smith, and his role is the CEO, right? This is an important dude. We know because of the IP address, we know that this is from the San Francisco office, right? 192.168 traffic comes from San Francisco. No, this internal network that's used in the San Francisco office. But we're taking this data from an external data source, something that's never been put into Splunk, and we're able to search it, we're able to do lookups against that data to enrich the data that is in Splunk. This is a screenshot. These are from 6.5. 6.5 actually generally available now. GA was a couple weeks ago. This has a lot of cool new features, including search syntax. So if you Splunk before, you've probably been clamoring for this, right? The ability to have search terms highlighted in different colors, make it easier for you to write searches. Also autocomplete, so it's very helpful in suggesting what commands you might be using in your search. Very easy to search over all this data you can just put into Splunk. About alerting, you can do searches and have an alert fire. And that alert could take a number of different actions. That could be sending an email, right? That's kind of boring. That's 1990 technology, right? You could have a message be fired off into a HIP room. You could a ServiceNow ticket, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so you could run a script of your own choosing, right? Any kind of script that you have that will run on that host operating system, that could be an alert action. Also dynamic reporting, okay? So we have this ability to search and analyze your data. We have the ability to report it. And the report could be a table, it could be a graph, it could be a kind of custom visualization. So if you go to splunkbase.com and see a screenshot of Splunkbase later, that's where you can extend the power of Splunk. That's where you can get content that other people have written for Splunk. So you can get content that Splunk has written for Splunk, as well as other users of Splunk writing content. So in this custom visualizations means that other users can distribute their own visualizations that run inside of Splunk. So really cool visualization, like a bouncing bubble chart or I don't even know what, right? You can create that visualization and you can import that into Splunk from our splunkbase.com app store. Visualizations are great. People don't necessarily have to log into Splunk to see them, right? The reports can be combined to create dashboards, and dashboards can actually be embedded into external web pages. So we already have an internal wiki or documentation of that nature, you can embed a Splunk visualization into that web page. An example of the easy-to-use analytics. Again, we want to make the machine data accessible and usable and valuable to everyone. So it's actually an interface where you can move data around and build your own searches and visualizations without using our search language. Right? We have very, very powerful search processing language, but it's not for everyone. You think of the business users using Excel. They want to drag and drop. They want their pivot tables. This gets them that. So 6.5, preparation and analysis with tables. This is a new interface that we have and allows people to explore data without using our search processing language. So this is in 6.5. Talk about this big data. We talk. People normally have concerns. They naturally have concerns about how much space this might eat up. Data is rolled basically how according to age, how old it is, and then it is rolled to different tiers of storage. So warm and cold, and then frozen. And frozen lives off disk. It can be off the system. It could be tape. It could be on external media. On anything. It's not searchable. Hot, warm, and cold data is searchable. Something new with Splunk 6.5 is that cold data can still be searchable, right? Cold data is always searchable, but it can live in a different file system. Now it can live in Hadoop. So you have hot and warm data, stuff that you're searching for every day, right? Maybe it's just the last week's worth of data or the last month, right? That is on your Splunk server eating up that valuable SSD storage space, right, or your big RAID 10 array. But the old data, the stuff that's months old, the stuff that you know you need to search, but maybe only once a quarter, can now live in Hadoop or in S3 storage. So it tremendously reduces the total cost of ownership, much bigger return on investment, right? Keep that data, that old data, you know you need to store it, you're store it and search it, but keep it on something slow. Slow. Here's a shot of Splunk Base, space.com. This is where you go to get pre-configured content for Splunk. Splunk is this platform for machine data. We want people to take that platform and extend it. Okay, this is where you can get prepackaged content where other people have already extended Splunk. Come to the bottom, splunkbase.com, also answers.splunk.com, our user forum. If you have questions, go to answers.splunk.com. We'll have answers. So, slide we talk about Splunk Base. This pre-packaged content. That content, do we check it out and verify that it's good stuff? Yeah, of course we do. Right, we have certification process. So for an app that is Splunk certified, it is the seal that indicates quality, right? Assurance. We've done all this review. It is certified. It's good to go. Okay, going a little bit long. I want to make sure that I get to the Splunk app for stream. This is my favorite thing. I used to be a network security analyst at the University of Texas at Austin. My job for 6.5 years was to sit in a dark corner on the second floor of the underground library and look at packet captures, looking at packet captures from our intrusion detection system. My whole life for 6.5 years was looking at packet captures. So to have technology that will allow us to take PCAPs or just packets off the wire and put that into Splunk is tremendously exciting to me. The Splunk for Stream is free. Okay, you can download and run on that free trial enterprise license that I know you're going to grab today. Get the Splunk for Stream. Start looking at the local interface of your workstation or your laptop, right, to take advantage of these pre-built reports, things like DNS performance, things like HTTP traffic and performance. But as promised, this is a screenshot for the Splunk app for Stream. This is actually just the certain reporting app within Splunk, but this is what a stream event looks like. The interesting fields broken out into field value pairs. And that's it for BERT. Discussed all these things. And thanks so much.
All right. Can you hear me? Awesome. Great job. Awesome. Moving right along here, we want to announce our next winner, and that person is Sarah Jackson, and you are the winner of a Moto 360 Sports Edition. Awesome. So next, we make sure, we're moving along here, keeping on time. It looks like we're good. We have Jay Chin from Varonis. And Jay, you are on the clock. Take it away.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that you hear me. Can I get a confirmation? And okay. Fantastic. All right, so as Brand does a phenomenal job of pulling that machine-generated unstructured data, and I think it would be safe to say that what some of our colleagues are mentioning here is that the data environment is growing, right? And we need a better way to not only have granular control at a storage and VM level, also take into account all of the machine unstructured information that's coming your way. Varonis is actually going to take a different perspective, and where we're going to focus is going to be all around the unstructured generated data types. Things like emails and Word files and presentations being a good example, but all of the things that you and I would perhaps take from a stored environment and maybe port over into those data platforms to do our day-to-day job. Now, I think that it would be safe to say that as we move into this digital era, data protection has never been more important. So let's take a look at some of the data breaches, right, that have taken place over the course of even just 10 years, right? Now, just a bit of background information. What you're right now is examples of organizations that have experienced data breaches in excess of 30,000 different records, right? Some of which have been in that unstructured generated data environment. So as you're immune to it, right, a lot of different industries that have been impacted by these data breaches or compromised by data. And then as we get farther into the 2015, we're kind of going backwards, but the density of data breaches has gone on, is more frequent, or the volume of data breaches across all of those industries has grown. So, 2004, a lot fewer incidents. Now you get into the 2015 era, and you hear about different incidents in the headlines per day. I think there's even movies being made, being a perfect example of where data breach and folks accessing the information and taking sensitive data has been problems not only for industries, but even state governments as well as federal and entities as well. All right. If we trends with the right of these data breaches, what you're going to see immediately out of the gate, even comparing 2012 to 2015, is that there's just an increased number of attacks, which is what we talked about before. And then if you look in the middle there, time to resolve or recover from these attacks is all growing. 2010, it took 14 days for those to kind of recover from it, and in 2015, 46 days, right? And then the third aspect is that the attacks are becoming even more damaging. Look at that a little bit closer. What experience is, or what you're going to see just from the data that you see here, is that the most cost-damaging type is that malicious insider. So what highlights is that what are some common things. Let's identify what the problem is and some similarities across the board, right? So the threat, first and foremost, was already on the inside, right? It's a disgruntled employee that is getting ready to jump ship, and they want to take some of that sensitive information and take it with them. Or someone who has hijacked someone should have access and gotten used to the kingdom, right? The common things. The threat was already inside. Of what's common about these data breaches is that it was of unstructured data type that we talked about, where, unstructured data, the human-generated type that we talked about, was either leaked or stolen or compromised. In the case of, I'm sure you've heard of ransomware and CryptoLocker, where everything's been encrypted and you can't access your own data, right? And the third commonality across all of these data breaches is that the traditional security measures, although they have providers and red flags, they did work to help protect that organization because they to lock down the data, and they were able to understand their users' normal behavior in access to this information. All right, let's take the analogy of a house, right? So the traditional security measures are going to ensure that you're protecting the inside of the home, and so you've got bar the windows, you've got cameras on the outside, you've got locks on the door, and you're constantly making sure that nothing that is unwanted is getting inside. Now you get access via keys, people that should be able to get into the home, and the problem there is that what happens if the keys are lost or stolen, right? What happens if the person you've given a key to decides to take something from the house, right? Or the contractors that you've allowed to do some work inside the home. So this just highlights, just in a very high-level analogy, some of the challenges with just the traditional security measures. Now, Varonis really steps in is taking inside the house, right? And this is just kind of a example it could potentially look like, but oftentimes it's very common that no one has a good idea of where anything is as it relates to that unstructured data. And which if you have
on this slide, there's some animation to it that's not showing up for the rest of us.
So sometimes the things that you want to identify is of all of the things inside your home, right? If you got all the goods sitting on your coffee table, your bookshelves, etc., what's important, right? And so it's understanding what's inside the home first and foremost, right? Employees' personal information, or customers' banking information, or maybe someone that you recently interviewed and all of their personally identifiable data, right? Or a lot of the excess clutter that might be in there, and just understanding that is in fact really clutter, right? Let's take a look at an example of this analogy, right, of looking inside the home. And the example that we're sharing here is a financial services organization, right? 17,000 employees, 1.3 million files, 700,000 different folders, and about 4 terabytes of data, right? Now, that's very common. Organizations are having to try to get line of sight into all of this data and no controls or visibility. If there's any data access that's overexposed to too many users, and no one is monitoring to see if there's anything weird or anomalous going on, right? So let's dig how Varonis helps to address this issue. Start is by pulling in multiple data streams. Now, metadata is basically essentially data about data. So we've got users and group information from your Active Directory and directory services. We take also at the permissions information, knowing who can access your data. Third, activity. Or historically over time, knowing users do access what data and ultimately what they've been doing with it. And then metadata stream that we actually pull in is content information. Not all data is created equal, so going back to that in-house analogy, some clutter, so it's actually sensitive information or important information that we want to first and foremost categorize and understand better. So those are metadata streams that we pull in and provide out of the gate, as we work with you, a express risk assessment. Essentially, our technology, you can actually, and it installs in about 90 minutes to 120 minutes, so an hour and a half to 2 hours. And after the solution has been installed in your environment within, a protected safe zone, you can glean some of this information, right? Categorize where sensitive data is. Understand where where I might have some over-permissioning or global access to information. Where are there expired passwords, or non-expiring passwords, and a lot of insight into what's inside your home. All right. After we give you insight into, then we do the process of helping to clean up and make sure that everyone that has access should have access, right? So to validate proper, access and to the right person, essentially to be able to do a job, right? Right person has the right level of access to only the right information that they need to perform day-to-day, and adopting we like to call least privilege model, right? And that way it helps to ensure that everyone has the right permission levels without over-permissioning and opening up the keys to the kingdom. The second thing is, of course, you want to be able to do some day-to-day monitoring of access and behavior. So if Jane Doe decides that, tomorrow she's going to provide her resignation, I want to know that she's actually, downloading all of the information as it relates to customer information, right, that's about to take with her. We want to understand and be alerted to the normal behavior. We want to be able to only be alerted, but take corrective measures and automate stopping of that malicious action. Of course, as a byproduct, we also want to understand where there's stale data, right? We want to be able to understand where information is not being accessed. And again, from a purely optimism play, you want to be able to really take and clean up data environment that, quite frankly, isn't needed, and you can probably even move down to a lower tier storage or delete it outright. And the benefit of that is that you're, again, optimizing your storage environment, but then you're mitigating risk as well, right? To be liable for keeping data longer than you need to, especially as it relates to this data that you might have some compliance requirements around. As we not only helping to clean up the inside of the home, but moving forward and sustaining that over the long haul, will help you to start identifying data ownership, for example, to each individual room. Right? If you have an HR director that knows the most about their data, why not empower them to be able to take inventory of what's in that room, give them insights into everyone that has access to it, and also give details on who should or should not have access, and then allow them to be their own data stewards. So it really load off of IT, and then it really allows them to be a lot happier in being able to manage control and not have to wait any lag in granting those permissions. All the being able to keep track of all of the inventory across the entire house. Right? We have proven best practices methodology for working through this process of not only, inside the home, understanding what the 4 metadata streams are that I mentioned earlier. We actually go through a step-by-step process of recommending how to go through this cleanup effort. If you on the phone have actually tried to do a permissions cleanup, it usually is a very arduous and painful and manual process. And we have the ability to provide some immediate visibility and modeling capabilities so that you can sandbox the changes before you ever commit them to change in production. And once you go through this process of cleaning up, which may take some time, ways to allow you to sustain over the long haul so that you're not having to go through that cleanup permissions across your entire unstructured data environment over and over again, and to automate a lot of those steps. All right. Now, stand at a high level what that proven methodology is for best practices management. We get more details about how to map directory services, permissions, file systems, etc., and then step by step working with you as it relates to your specific environment on how we go through detecting and in this note and mention that as it relates to even within the data security space, there are complementary technologies that we hand in hand with in taking our metadata streams and feeding it into, for example, a Splunk or a solution, or taking the data classification information from a DLP solution and adjusting it and giving you contextual information because we make 4 different metadata streams and putting that contextual information. We complement a lot of these other solutions. So if you have them in your environment, it may be worthwhile to take us on that free express risk assessment to just see how we can help to address some gaps within that layered security approach and truly being able to lock down your data and mitigating any risk as it relates to data. Thanks for
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Jay. Great job. Great content. And we're going to go ahead and announce our next one here. Varonis is giving away $100 Visa gift card as cash, right? Winner of the Visa gift card is Ken Wood. All right. So awesome. Congrats. And we will go ahead and keep on moving. And next up, we have Workspot. And we have Steve from Workspot. I hope I pronounced your name right. Right. So go ahead, take it away. You're up.
See your screen as well. Do you want to tell you too?
Nope, here yet. Here. You'll figure out technical issues.
You might go over to the quick start and connect to the audio again.
Sorry about that. Little technical issue.
I wanted to jump to the next one and then try and fix for people.
Yeah, I think. Corey, are you on?
Okay.
Not yet. why don't you try your direct line? Maybe she can call directly.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Okay, cool.
What's going on? I think we can work now. You there? Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, perfect.
Sorry about that. Not sure why I couldn't access to that. But thank you guys for the patience. This is Sophie from Workspot. I'm a product specialist over here. If you don't know about Workspot, we've been around for about 4 years. What we provide is a insanely simple VDI platform. If not familiar with VDI, what that stands for is virtual desktop infrastructure. So Workspot, the DNA of the company, we're a bunch of ex-Citrix, ex-VMware folks. I actually spent about 2.5 years at VMware myself as an end-user computing specialist. But that, my co-founders and executives, basically what I want to highlight from this slide is that we were actually the original folks that pushed out what everyone knows as VDI today. So my CEO, Amitabh, actually was the general manager of DNAP and did desktop at Citrix, pushed out that platform, made it the success that it is today. And Puneet, my CTO, was basically one of the very first founding engineers of VMware Horizons View platform. So foundation, and also made that platform the success that it is today. But aside from the fact that we've built something great that the market loves, is that we're also not naive. From the aspect of the market, it's still viewed as very complex, very expensive, and the user experience is still not where it should be in regards to kind of how we as the user work today. So what we did is we came together, built something different, something really far from what we originally built, and really help automate and make secure access easy. So how we did that is we took a look at the original architecture of what we built and realized that the reason why our platform never reached its full potential was because it was built on a lot of legacy hardware software components. So basically, as you know, technology it moves at such a quick pace. So what we did is we wanted to move away from legacy architecture, do something really new, and truly work with how folks are basically acquiring technology today, which is mobile first, cloud first. So basically, the complexity in VDI, I wanted to share this with you because this is where all the challenges happen, right? So in traditional VDI, when you bring up a VDI environment as an IT administrator, you have to basically install, bring up, manage, and maintain through multiple management consoles different pieces of technology in the data center. As a user, that's where all the challenge, all the pain happens, because to get access to your desktop or to your resource, you have to make 14 different touches across the data center. So this is a lot of moving pieces. So what we did is our architecture was very simple, leveraging modern architecture, modern times. We split this architecture into 2 pieces. What we did is cloud and hyperconverged. If you think about VDI, there's really 2 pieces, right? So when you think about VDI, there's the front end, which we call the orchestration, load balancing, the portal, the brokering, provisioning. What Workspot essentially has done is basically not just move those components into the cloud, but we took it a step further. We architected it completely, so now it is truly cloud native and web scale. And the combination with our offering for the orchestration, for that, again, we have teamed up with Hyperconverged to be able to simplify the data center management and able to make that environment elastic. So the combination of the 2 together is what we call kind of VDI 2.0 web scale VDI. Basically, essentially, the 2 important things about Workspot is and how it works is our control piece. So unlike traditional VDI, basically the traditional things that you would consume, bring up on an on-premise infrastructure, we're going to consume it as a service. So basically, in our cloud, no credentials are being saved or stored in our cloud. Our cloud is just used for control. So what that means is the provisioning, the management, and the monitoring is the sole job of the cloud. What happens is you basically do all the configuration in the cloud. It gets pushed down to the client, and from there, the client consumes those resources through a direct point-to-point connection to the resources behind the firewall. And it started with Workspot, really easy, the minimal requirement, like traditional VDI. It really is this little guy right here. We call him the enterprise connector. Installed on any Windows server in your environment. That guy will allow us to bridge the communication between our Workspot cloud to your hardware infrastructure. We're talking to specifically here is the hypervisor, and being able to communicate to the hypervisor, it allows us to do a couple things. We could go ahead and clone from resources, provision from resources, and also assign from those very same resources. So that's the cloud architecture specifically, but the cloud basically is a really core piece, but the second piece that is also really important is our client piece. So built a lot of intelligence into our client. So unlike a Citrix receiver client or a VMware View client, the Workspot client, we embedded a lot of different technologies into the client. So now the client does all the heavy lifting. So as an end user, the end user does not need to make those 14 different touches across the data center to get the resource that we built into our client to make the experience really, really seamless. Is we built in a secure browser, an RDP client, and remote FX client. So that's the same protocol that we're using to get access to RDS hosted apps, as well as use that protocol to go ahead and deliver VDI desktops. We can also deliver direct access to file shares. We also built in a single sign-on engine, the ability to integrate with any two-factor authentication you have in-house, because, of course, security is always top of mind. We also built in a VPN client. So for our VPN client, we'll talk back to your VPN, and that's how we use a secure connection to those resources behind the firewall. And 4 VPNs that we support that's tightly integrated into our solution is Cisco, Fortinet, F5, and Juniper Pulse Secure. And our client runs on just about any platform. We support iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, as well as thin and zero clients. And if that Workspot from a perspective of how we compare from the two leaders in the space, VMware and Citrix, again, just look at that top stack right here. So these, again, are all things that if you don't have already in-house today, a lot of hardware, server, software pieces that you have to, again, acquire, implement, bring up, manage through multiple management consoles on a daily scale. So basically, pushing out a VDI platform traditionally would take you weeks and months. With Workspot, you can get an environment up and running in less than 60 minutes. So if you go on our website, you'll see it all over our website. Take our 60-minute challenge. So what you do when you sign up for an account, you get your own environment, production-ready, enterprise-grade, and then you can get started and going ahead and provisioning out virtual apps. And then when you pair us up with Hyperconverter, again, now not only have you simplified the front end, but you now simplified the back end, giving you an insanely simple VDI platform, basically truly making you web scale, meaning whether you start with 5 users today, scale to 100 users tomorrow, 500 users an hour from today, it will not break. You won't have any issues about being able to scale out that environment. And that's the present of what I wanted to do next is you the client experience. So I think I still have some time here. So from an end user perspective, my MacBook here, if I access to Workspot, all I have to do is go to the Apple Store, download the app. I'm going to get an email with an activation pin. With the activation pin, I'll go ahead and create my own unique pin from that. Then it'll go ahead and unlock what I call my secure workspace. So as you see here, based on my role as a product specialist here, I have to be able to demonstrate and show how we deliver and get access to different type of resources. So as you can see, we could deliver SaaS, web, Windows, and active desktops. Fox and Salesforce, obviously SaaS. We have SharePoint here, the web-based SaaS that's our firewall. Access to a VDI desktop, a desktop, access to basically a Windows app sitting in our data center, also access to files. But what I want to show you for demonstration purposes to really highlight that client is clicking SharePoint. Basically, I'm in my office today, connecting my office Wi-Fi. Our office Wi-Fi is configured as an outside network. Our client is very smart. It understands that this user today is on an outside network, so please take her through the VPN. But as a user, I clicked on an app and I got access to the app. By means, as an end user, I didn't have to fire up a VPN client, I didn't have to authenticate, and I didn't have to put in my username and passcode. So Workspot, the client itself, is doing all the heavy lifting. So when I click on that client to get access to the secure workspace, get access to SharePoint, the client understands that I'm off the network. It's routing me through the VPN, authenticating me against the VPN, and then it's an app, authenticating me against the app, and letting me in. So we're all about simple, seamless experience. And whether I'm working on my MacBook, on my iPhone, or on my iPad, I get the same Workspot tool that I get access. So from a training perspective from IT, you're not having to train your users on how to basically get access on different platforms. So this is the client piece, a bit about the admin piece. Easy for us, right, to get up and running. All you do is go to control.workspot.com. You sign up for an account. I already have a production account, so I'll go ahead and log in just to show you that platform and how that would look like. But really, essentially, really easy. When you log in for accounts, we're going to spin you up your very own secure Workspot account. In that account, you go ahead and set up things that you need for your environment. When you first log in, you're going to get a dashboard, a very high-level overview of different devices, active users, and some high-level error reports. But to start, what I want to show you is essentially kind of the amount of effort it needs to get started. So Workspot, our architecture is very flexible. So basically, just go to the Setup tab. You go to a data center. So basically, our broker, how we do things, we grab resources from just about anywhere, whether it's on-prem, hosted, or in the cloud. So just let us know where that data center is. We already have a data center, so I'll click on here. After that, you download the connector, right? That connector will give you this integration key. That's what essentially allows us to bridge to communication back to your hardware. After you do the integration key, let us know what configuration, what cluster are we talking to specifically. As you can see here, we have a scale environment, a Sphere cluster right here, and a Nutanix Acropolis cluster right here. So that's actually all you need to get up and running. Go ahead and spin up BDI desktops. Very easy, very straightforward. Go to resources, go to BDI, data pool, and you know if it's persistent, non-persistent. You give this. Let us know the center is. What config are we using? Click select the template. Just means that golden image, right? Is that Win 7, Win 8, Win 10? Let us know how desktops you want to spin up and deliver to users. How do you want to name it? How do you want to it? You can or not. Give an icon, click create, and then near in. Essentially, yeah. So very easy, very straightforward. And the next thing I wanted to show you is because we built Solution from the ground up, we do a lot of the big data analytics. I know we're talking about a lot of big data, machine data. So basically, in the context of work, you can understand what users are doing and how they're performing, and you have this auditing trail of what's going on. So as you can see here, real-time auditing trail of what's going on. As you can see here, here's me as a user, unlocked Workspot, California, I'm on my Mac, right? We take that data, we basically aggregate it into this really nice report. So go 90 days, probably a little bit more interesting. You give, of course, the data about the different devices and network by session, by users, bandwidth. We use the application, right? So the common complaint about VDI is that it's with end users, it can be a little hard to adapt because it changes how they work. So a lot of them, someone calls in and says, you know, I have a problem with my VDI desktop. It's a challenge because you understand if it's the user, is it the network, is it the application, what is really going on? So this analytics is very important to understand. Is the application that's performing badly or not so bad? And then there's the network. And, you know, right, very vital for our enterprise customers that have multiple locations, understand the country and users and how they're behaving across those locations. That's pretty much Workspot in a nutshell. We can do, but that's something that I would love if there's an interest. Anybody has any VDI projects, work to you directly and spin you up so you can see the product in action.
Thanks, Sophie. That was great. That was great that you were under the time allotment there. That was awesome. So I want to go ahead and while we get Corey online and get him ready to go, I'll go ahead and announce our next winner. And we have a fan, and I hope I didn't mispronounce your name again. You are the winner of a $150 Amazon card from Workspot. but congrats. And you guys don't have to remember exactly all this. We'll make sure that we reach out to you directly after the and connect with you that way to make sure that you get your prize and you get all the follow-up information as well. So right in line here. We're right on cue here for our time. To finish up, again, if you guys have any questions for any of our panelists, please make sure you put those in the Q&A, and we'll have our experts address those there in that Q&A. Next up, we have Exagrid, and from Exagrid, we have Corey Ray. Take it away, Corey.
All right, I think I know which person you are on here, so let me press unmute, and if you can talk.
This is Corey Ray. I'm here. Me. Me or no? Hello? Hello?
Hear you, but we can't. We can't see your screen.
Oh, that might be my fault. Almost is. It would be.
There we go.
Now.
Perfect.
Everybody, you can see my screen. Perfect. I'll kick it off. So, Grid, what do we do? Why on this call, and what value do we add to you guys? We are, in and of ourselves, a stress-free backup storage. Tell you a little bit about us. We've been around for about 14 years. We've been shipping product about 12. We are, and I didn't update this slide, but we have probably 15,000 or more installations globally, and we have over 350 published success stories about us as a company and our technology and as our product. So we're not really an up-and-comer as we had perceived in the past. We've been here, we continue to grow, and our footprint continues to expand, continue to win awards. Last year we actually won the Gold Award for Storage Magazine for top performance, ease of integration, manageability, function, and value. I'll go into those with you in more detail, but the time that we have, let me just tell a little bit more about us and why you should consider us with respect to your backups. So one of the things that we have to ask our customers is, when we consider doing a backup appliance and backup storage, we want to use a product that allows for data deduplication. And almost always they say yes, right? Not us today use VHS tapes in our home. We use a better, whether it's Blu-ray, DVD, or we stream videos, right? But ultimately, from a backup perspective, you want the best of breed technology and something that's going to use data deduplication. And that's us, right? How efficient will we dedupe your data and bring it to disk? Bandwidth efficiency and disaster recovery. A lot of the things that us look at, I just got to get my backups done, and I need them to complete before 8, 14, 24 hours. I mean, we've actually heard some horror stories that they go even longer. But how quickly can we recover that, right? The things that you need to look at as you're evaluating all backup technologies is how fast can you back up your data? If you're backing up 10 terabytes, if you're backing up a petabyte, just you looking at your infrastructure, I would assume that a real key factor in your decision should be how fast can I get my backup to complete. But it is important, and some might say arguably more important, is having to recover that data. I want to tell you a little bit about that, about how much we restore your data than any other technology that's on the market today. And from a fixed link, those that will be the backup administrators, if I was to tell you that there was a product that back up bytes or a petabyte and do it all within 6 hours, I'm sure that's something you'd be interested in. And that's what makes Exagrid special, is our fixed link backup and recovery windows. So let me talk everybody else's technology just briefly. And this is what they use as inline scale-up architecture. There's a slower ingest rate to do that because of the way that they view the data. Your back windows are much longer, and as you can read from there, right, your windows continue to grow as your data grows. And ultimately, every one of those appliances that are sold by other manufacturers you ultimately will grow out of. Have to do a forklift upgrade. And as long as you don't mind doing a forklift upgrade every 3 to 5 years, yeah, it's not really a key factor for you. But ideally, this is not production storage. This is backup, right? It'd be nice if we could build an appliance that you didn't have to forklift upgrade every 18, 36 months, 60 months, and you could set and forget, or at least allow it to grow with you. Things Exagrid does that's different in line is we bring your data directly to us, undeduped and uncompressed. Now, Decore, you were just talking about dedupe the first couple of slides. Why are we not talking about it now? I'm explaining to you at this particular point is we bring your data from your environment, from your media server, to as fast as physically possible. And we can take that, our largest appliance will do 8 terabytes an hour, and we can land our landing zone in the fastest amount of time. We have 10 gig. We actually have 40 gig capability for those that have it in their infrastructure already to bring that data to our clients and our landing zone. The fact that's one of the ways that we're able to make your backups faster. The no dedupe, no compression on the front side of running the backup jobs. The stores is where, because of our landing, we're able to recreate that data or stand it back up near instantly. And if you refer to the other slide, if you had deep and compressed data in your inline scenario, you would have to rehydrate that data. With an Exagrid, you don't have to do that because as it sits on our landing zone, undeduped and uncompressed, you can store it almost instantaneously. And that's one of the things Gardner talks about is 92% of the time you do your restores from your last full backup. And using an inline solution, your last full backup was the original full backup. Everything else has been a delta change. Your time to recovery is going to be significantly longer than it would be with Exagrid. I touched on fixed link backup windows a little bit, but it just better illustrates if you grow from tomorrow you started with 50 terabytes to a year from now you're at 200 terabytes. No matter what appliance you bought, you would have to buy a larger head unit. You would have to expand that appliance. It only drives so much data. The engine in and of itself can only do so much work and handle so much workload. X has taken that away. There's no more grow, break, and replace, and that's what this shows you. What we do, consider it a high-performance computing or nodal approach your Exagrid appliance. Every appliance we install, again, from 40 terabytes to a petabyte, will grow with processing power, throughput, and memory. That's how we get the fixed link backup windows. We can do, again, from 40 to a petabyte in 40 hours, and we guarantee it in writing. We don't end of life our products. It's nodal approach. You scale and grow. So it's really a value add for those of you that are looking to, put backup, having something you'd ever grow, break, and replace out of. From an ingest performance, I'd just like to show this briefly. It shows Exagrid from a scaling perspective. We're so far exponentially further than anyone else in the market. It's almost comical when we show the slide. But the reality is, as companies grow, these boxes that everybody else sells can only take so much of your data. And they come in and they originally meet you about what their performances can be, and when you grow, they go, well, we didn't promise you that performance as you grow. As you can see with Exagrid, we continue to scale. And at 1 petabyte grid, which is 25 nodes, you can get 200 terabytes of ingest in that box. And the way that we run we batch our jobs, we can run up to 15 concurrent jobs per port in a 25 node. So you could literally run 1,800 jobs. Batch jobs concurrently. Not that you would, right? But a lot of people ask, how do you get that throughput? How do you get that? It's because every appliance that we have has capacity, has processing power, has memory, and it has throughput. So it's substantially faster and better than anything out there. Speaking of throughput, these are our appliances. We start as small as an EX2000. If you have some outlying locations that need appliance and you want to back up locally and then bring it back to your primary data center, you have a larger grid there. Again, scale, but you can see from a throughput, bandwidth perspective, every one of those falls within the parameters of the backup targets of 4 to 6 hours. You can complete your backup job quickly and in a fixed rate, which is probably most important to you guys. One of the things we are not is a backup software, but it's okay for you guys that are on the call. If your backup software, other than 2, we work with it. You keep your current backup software, and it will use us as a target. The only 2 we don't use are Avamar, which is proprietary, and Aperture, which is currently being sold or has already been sold. What else we work with? So we don't ask you to go in and make these big changes to an environment that you're currently using, whether it's Veeam for your backups, Commvault, Veritas. We work with all of them. We're a great target for them. Stress-free redundancy. This I just like to mention this because the boxes are built with RAID 6 dual discs, dual fans. So the failures are rare. More than not, it's with storage appliance. You may have a single disk failure, which would not cause you any problems in a RAID 6 configuration. We drop ship you a DIN in 24 hours, and we normally know with the home that you're having a failure. We ship the disk, and you drop it in the disk tray, slot number 13, whatever, and it repopulates and it's ready to go. So really strong from a redundancy security perspective. The hardware is solid. I close. This is kind of really important when you think about those of you that manage backups today. There's no 800 number to a follow-the-globe support center that the guy's going to ask you the same 10 questions. Did you power the box off? Is this working? Is it connected? You are actually given a level 2 support engineer that is an expert in your backup application. So some may be Commvault, some of you may be Veeam, some of you may be, we assign the engineer based on your backup application. So it's really important you call, you get Bob from Boston, he knows that you're using, net backup, you're using Veeam, and he can help you with if there's an issue, we can shoot it. You don't have to call 4 or 5 other people to do that, to help you with that. Self-installable. These things, they drop ship to your locations. They rack and stack, and you can have a box up and running in less than 90 minutes doing backup jobs. That's incredibly efficient, especially when you consider some of the link installs that go in other appliances. And the knowledge transfer takes forever. Our Exagrid basically has 4 tabs across the top. This is meant to be a install it, and forget about it. Short of outgrowing it and add another node, we're going to continue to run based on your jobs requirements that you set, and you don't have to worry about it. It requires little to no maintenance. And so I'll close with this. The things to take from Exagrid are just kind of 4 key things. Our lane zone is what separates us from everybody else. We bring it to us faster than anyone else, and leave it there for you to restore nearly. The fact that we have our repository that does all your dedupe and compression that allows you to get the 10, 20, 30 to 1 dedupe rates, I can see that more one-on-one scenario. Scale out is super important for those of you that have been a part of data centers that had explosive growth. Having to ever forklift upgrade our product is so significant from a financial perspective and manpower perspective. It makes it really, really valuable. Lowest cost. Because of the way technology is designed, we have to put a lot of cost into these head units where, and other manufacturers, they have to buy these large engines and then a cheap disk below it. Each one of our appliances is significantly less than some of the larger players out there. And the fact that they allow you to grow, I mentioned before, in a grid perspective, is much less cost perspective. World-class support, I aligned with that because that is the most important thing. From whether you ever meet me or not, if you buy the Exagrid appliances, having these top-tier support engineers, that's who gets most of our accolades. Most of our awards are on our customer service and our support. These guys are just Johnny on the spot, and it's really nice when there is an issue to have a number that you dial directly to a guy's desk, have that kind of support, and won't find other places. So that's it. That's what I've got. I appreciate it, and thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, Corey. Great job. And it looks like we finished right on time. We had a couple of technical issues there, but 103 is not bad. So I definitely appreciate all of our presenters today, and everyone's on the line and stuck with us to the end. And we actually have one more prize to give away. It's coming from Exagrid, and it is actually a pair of Bose headphones. And of the Bose headphones is Jeff Kirby. So that's Jeff. And thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions about any of these products, or if you have general questions about anything within your data center, whether it be security, data storage, virtualization in general, VDI, any of that, we absolutely love to speak with you about your environment, learn more about you and your company, and see if there's an opportunity for us to help you. Catherine, if you mind, can you stick my slide back up there? We want to make sure everybody has my email address. We also value feedback regarding these types of webinar events that we put on. We try to bring you great information in a timely fashion and make it fun at the same time. So if you do have any comments about this particular presentation, the format, the day that was presented, do shoot me a note. I do value those. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. So if you need anything, thank you, guys.